And faith is based upon facts, right? It's not based upon fictions or just imagination. It's based upon facts. And in fact, if it's without the basis of facts, it's not faith at all. It's just concepts or ideas. True faith is always based on facts. And facts, once we gather the facts, we eventually will engage our will to actually learn more and go through a process. That's what we eventually do. Now, once we engage our will, if we use the microphone, so there's a microphone.
When you say faith, I think of faith as no facts.
Exactly, that's how most people think of faith. Most people believe faith means no facts. But can I illustrate the kind of faith we're going to need? Let's compare it with what the world's done with science for a moment, right? So if you think about the scientific achievements we've made. In the 1960s and the 1950s, and it actually started in the 40s, the space program began, right? And then in the 1950s it ramped up, and then there was a big competition between your country and the Russian government, of course, trying to be the first people into space. Now, why did mankind take the risk to go into space? Because it is a risk, isn't it? Like, you've got to develop life support systems, and who knows, you might shoot somebody out there and they never come back. If you do it wrong, that's certainly the case, right? Now, what caused them to believe that if you shot somebody out there, they would be able to get back? What caused them to believe that? Facts. They had gained facts about what? Gravity is one of the facts that they'd gained. What else? Okay, so they needed to know about what we live on, which is not just oxygen, but a mixture of gases. They needed to know about how water is going to fluctuate and be used in space. They had to know propulsion. They had to understand space in the sense that it was a vacuum, that once you pointed somebody in a certain direction, you were going to go in that direction, except when gravity takes over. They had to know. Now, these are all facts that they had gained through previous scientific experiments. Is that not true? So they now had all these facts that caused them to have faith that they could shoot somebody up into the space, make them go around the moon and even land on the moon, and then get back home and tell of their experience. But they didn't know that it would actually be achievable until they did it, but they believed with all of their heart, because if they didn't believe with all their heart, they wouldn't have tried it. They believed with all their heart that because of what they knew about all of these facts, they could have the faith that shooting someone off into space meant, and getting them back was achievable. Does that make sense? Now that's exactly the same with our faith about God. That's the same kind of basis that we need to have. So we need to start experimenting with what is God's nature and characteristics. And we need to develop enough knowledge or facts about that to actually generate enough faith that we can use our will to connect to God. Otherwise, we'll never do it. We'll never do it. And so to me, faith is always based on facts. And I would never choose to connect to God unless I had good factual evidence that would suggest that it was worth trying. Does that make sense? Now, I know a lot of people on earth think about faith completely different to that. And I don't understand, actually, the way faith is achieved on earth for many people, because they have faith in what I believe is no facts at all. And that, obviously, is not going to be very conducive to you using your will firmly in a certain direction. You have to... And this whole concept of blind faith, to me, is a complete oxymoron. It's a complete opposite of two terms. There's no such thing as being blind when you have faith, right? There's no such thing as that, in my opinion. What we need to do is base our faith upon the facts that we've discovered about the universe. And in this case, if we're developing a relationship with God, between ourselves and God, there's two parts in that. We need to know about God's nature and we need to know about our own. We need to know facts about our own nature and facts about God's nature before we're going to develop any faith that such a connection between ourselves and God is possible. Does that make sense? So, I feel faith is based on facts. When it's based on facts, it is solid. It has a good foundation. Right? Once you've got a solid foundation to your faith, you will be motivated to use your will to discover things, to do more things, to move in some direction. But if you have no faith, it's highly unlikely you will motivate your will to discover new things in a relationship with God. Highly unlikely. And so I find the majority of people struggle with these concepts because they are still struggling with the facts. Right? So whenever I am uncertain about something, and this still applies to me now, I always go back, what are the facts that I have already established and what are the things that I've yet to establish?
But isn't it the uncertainty that makes you have faith?
I don't feel it's the uncertainty that makes you have faith. No, as I've pointed out here, I'm saying...
That's something different. That's a physical...
If you're speaking to the mic...
That's a physical thing. I'm talking about faith as faith.
So am I. I'm talking about that. See, what I find is very logical is that on one hand we do this with physical things, but we don't do it with spiritual things. And what I'm suggesting to you is we need to do this with spiritual things just as much as we do it with physical things. We need to be like scientists when it comes to spiritual things just as much as we are like scientists with physical things. That's what we need to do.
But if you have faith, you just know. You don't have to have proof. You know.
I don't agree. There's no way you know. How can you know?
Of course you do. You know because you know.
No, you don't. You've had no personal experience, so you don't know.
I have personal experience.
Well, that's when you know, but that's because of the gathering of some facts. If you've had a personal experience of something that is true, then you've gathered some facts. Okay. Then you can know. But before that, you can't know. It's only just an imagination.
But it's not on the physical level.
I agree, but what we do physically is the same as what we need to do spiritually. We need to gather the facts. The way we gather facts is a bit different, but we still need to gather the facts. Does that make sense?